Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Michael Rotundo of Camillus in upstate New York near Syracuse is 30 years old, but he has failed to launch, as psychiatrists say. Failure to launch is the term used to describe the difficulties that many young adults today are having in assuming the self-sufficiency and responsibility of adulthood. Rather than leave home to get married or pursue a career or a course of study, as they did in my generation, they remain with or move back in with their parents, without even paying their portion of the household bills or doing much of, if anything, around the house. For example, 45% of young adults in New Jersey between the ages of 18 and 34 now live with their parents, according to Psychology Today. So, Michael Rotundo failed to launch. He dropped out of college and moved back home to sponge off his parents, living rent-free. Presumably that was acceptable for a short period, but once under the shelter of his parents' roof, Michael put down roots and refused to get on with his own life altogether. As the years rolled by, 8 years to be exact, 8 years, his parents, Mark and Christina Rotundo, began to increase pressure on their son to find a job, move out, and get on with his own life. Nothing doing. Michael had no intention of going anywhere. So his parents wrote him a letter calling for him to leave. He refused. They wrote another letter offering him $1,100 so he could find a place to live. They urged him to get a job. There are jobs available even for those with a poor work history like yours. Get one. You have to work, they wrote. In fact, they wrote 5 such letters to their deadbeat son, finally declaring, "We have decided you must leave this house immediately. You have 14 days to vacate. You will not be allowed to return. We will take whatever actions are necessary to enforce this decision." When Michael still refused to budge, his parents threatened to obtain a court order to evict him. Exasperated, they made good on their promise. May 22nd, 2018 was Judgment Day. As Michael's parents, Mark and Christina, sat quietly nearby in the courtroom, County Supreme Court Justice Donald Greenwood began by imploring Michael to just move out on his own and so avoid all the legal hassle. "Work out an agreement with your parents privately, here and now," he advised. Michael still refused the judge's request and asked him for 6 months more before having to leave the residence, which the judge rejected. After half an hour of back and forth between Michael and the magistrate, the judge had had enough. He ordered the 30-year-old to move out of his childhood home within 2 weeks. So when June the 1st deadline arrived, Michael finally left his parents' home with just 2.5 hours to spare. With some help from a pair of jumper cables, he managed to bring his old Volkswagen Passat to life and drove away honking the horn in recognition of the media who had gathered to watch the exodus. Michael's plan was to spend a week at an Airbnb rental in Syracuse, paid for with media appearances stemming from his eviction, and, if you please, before moving in with a distant cousin. Now, I must convey my sympathy for the parents in this situation, though I can't help wondering if there really wasn't a less draconian solution than taking their son to court. Clearly, they needed to get him out of their house for his own benefit. They loved Michael so much that they wanted him to take responsibility for his own life. Jesus informed his followers, "I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." How wonderful that Jesus wants us with him and is preparing a place for us so we can go to his home in heaven. Unlike Michael Rotundo, we are wanted at home. God actually wants us with him. Some of us have traveled so much that when people ask us, where's home for you? We have to stop and think. But then again, the longer we live on earth, the more we become aware of man's inhumanity to man, corruption, injustice, and evil, for example, and so-called natural tragedies such as tornadoes and hurricanes and fires and earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods and drought. And as a result, as the old song says, I can't feel at home in this world anymore. The author of the letter to the Hebrew Christians reminded them, this world is not our permanent home. We're looking forward to a home yet to come. So Christians know that God is preparing a home for them in heaven, and He wants us where He is. He wants us there with Him. Even the Michael Rotundos of this world, who have outlived their welcome in their parents' home, will be welcome there if they trust Jesus for forgiveness and grace and eternal life. Is Jesus preparing a home for you? And thank you for tuning in once again to Village Church Connections.